Good afternoon and welcome back to United TV. And it is official, Kobe Mainoo, a Manchester United player until 2031. It's here we go, signed and done. So, Manchester United fans, I think this is really good news. We've got Kobe Mainoo tied down for another 5 years at the club. It's an important piece of business. It was always going to be happening, and it was going to be announced before the Liverpool game. I didn't know it was going to be announced this afternoon, but we got this morning as well, which is great news. And this is going to be our lead story. We're going to be talking about that, the impact on Manchester United, the future. Also, if FIFA are going to change regulations, so possibly you might have to have an academy player involved in every single match. I don't know if it's every minute of the game, but they've got to be involved in every single match. And there's Kobe Mainoo with his family. Future of Manchester United there. There's one other story which we will cover a little bit later in the stream about potentially there's only one other candidate with Nagelsmann possibly being ruled out, one candidate to maybe rival Michael Carrick for next season. But I'll put some chapters in after the stream if we talk about that later on. So if you just tuned in on a replay, you can find out where it is. But we will get some opinions, get some thoughts, and I guess the first thing is going to be deal number one done. Kobe Mainoo, a Manchester United player. Brilliant news. The question is going to be now, right, let's get some players to play alongside Mainoo to help Manchester United try and win something next season and try and progress. So that's going to be, I think, the focus for Manchester United now. But really good. And I think, again, we could be looking at not necessarily individual players, but who fits alongside Mainoo. So let me just jump into the chat quickly and see what people are thinking as well. As always, interactive stream. So get any thoughts and opinions in and we'll go for them as well. So cheers for people that tuned in early. Cheers, Danny, Stephanie, Ryan, Lucky, um, Stephanie, and other legends in the chat as well, and Jim. And I'll try and say hello to everybody at some point during the stream, but welcome Yardi as well. And saying you're only 20% sure that Carrick is getting the job. IRAOLA jumping the line does not surprise you. So again, that's probably the story we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, so pen to paper, let's go Mainoo. Here we go. I'm very happy. I think it's really good business. I think a lot of people are probably not surprised that it's happened, given the news recently. But maybe 6 months ago, it looked like maybe he was going to be leaving the club, and possibly we'd be looking at having signed even more players in midfield. But no, really good deal. As a salary, I think the expectation is that potentially it's going to be, obviously we've got Champions League football next season, so you factor that in as well. It's probably going to be baseline similar to kind of the salary we've given Euro, but roughly kind of that sort of price point. So maybe about 135-ish, but you're looking at close to 150 maybe with bonuses. But again, kind of in line with what Euro's getting, I believe, in terms of contracts. So I know I think that I don't want to dwell too much on the financials of this one, but no, really good that this deal got done. And the question mark is going to be now, who do we get to play alongside Mainoo? Like, who are we going to get to try and help him? Alex Scott is a suggestion. I think if I was going to pick a few options, then you could be looking at Mathis, like Fernandez is definitely talked about. Angela Stiller is definitely talked about as well. I think Bruno Fernandez was talking very highly of Fernandez recently. Is that going to be an impact? We know, no, we know that Manchester United do value Bruno Fernandez. They are looking to try and make sure Bruno Fernandez stays part of the club for the next couple of years at least. Does Bruno Fernandez actually have much say on transfers? Because he does rate Fernandez. I do like Fernandez. He's a good player. It depends on like I suppose West Ham if they get relegated, it's the price would be so cheap it'd be stupid not to try and buy him. But you might have a bit of a fight with Paris Saint-Germain, which could be tricky. So again, it's not necessarily a straightforward deal, but apparently there's supposed to be some breaking news tonight, which I will be covering if it does become interesting. But that's about 8 p.m. Apparently there's going to be some sort of breaking news, so we'll look into that one. But I think Angela Stiller is certainly an achievable deal. And Lucky's suggesting that if you got Alex Scott, too many would be seriously interesting if you got those players. I agree. If you're looking at too many plus Kobe Mainoo, and I've got to make the assumption that Bruno Fernandes stays at the club, you've got three top quality players there as well. You could say also with Alex Scott, if you put Carlos Belieber too many, and as options as well. They're good players to play alongside Mainoo again. So I think these are good options, aren't they? So it does mean you've got a pretty strong team there. So I think too many might be the one that potentially takes a little bit of time. It's not going to be a straightforward deal. I still think it's going to be 50-50 on whether I would say still say that too many might well stay at Real Madrid, but if he doesn't, then I think Manchester United can definitely get him. I think the price makes sense as well. Welcome to chat, Real. Good to see you. Maybe what we're looking at is there's a few that it would be quite nice to get a deal early. And if Manchester United look at these players, let's say these players on the list here, if we want to get Angela Stiller, maybe that would be quite a good statement signing. And if we're looking at Gomez, we could get that deal quite done quite early. I think Hayden Hackney would be very interesting. Whether when we're looking at the head coach situation, does it make a difference who's head coach based on who we're going to sign? Like I would say with Angela Stiller, this is clearly a Vavell signing, so it's not going to matter too much. Hackney represents like a good option. I know we talked about this a couple of days ago, but I think Hackney is very good for 30 million. That he's definitely worth considering. And I think Gomez is like one of the reasons why Wolves have been actually improved quite a lot over the course of the season. So Howard says it's, it took long enough to get there. I'll just say no. The breaking news, honestly, I don't know what it is. I've just seen this breaking news apparently. So if there is, we'll cover it, but I don't know what it is. So I will be live at 8 p.m. I'll probably cover what news stories I know about, but it's going to be quite ambiguous in terms of the thumbnail and description because I'm going to be setting up about an hour early before the stream starts, and I don't know what the breaking news is supposed to be. So I'll literally have to do it on the fly and try. But I've got a guest with me, so at least it gives me a bit of like thinking time while they talk. But it's definitely there's definitely going to be stories coming out soon. I think United will be a little bit quicker than we have been in previous transfer windows. We need to do that, but I think we will be a little bit faster. So potentially, everybody's like, I think myself and everybody watching, we're all looking at the transfer window thinking, can United do something quite quickly to start with at least? And I think maybe we saw last year that we were looking at Delap, like we would have got Delap if he was interested. We ended up getting Cunha, so we did do an early deal last summer. So I think it's on the cards. I think there's definitely like one or two deals we could try and do a bit early. And if we do that, we might rule out a couple of expensive ones. But I think there's a deal we could do early. My guess is going to be, if I had to guess, I'd say Belieber or Alex Scott would be. I'm thinking one of those, but there was a story about a week ago said we're going to prepare an offer for Alex Scott. If it's confirmed tonight, that we'll cover that. If it's Belieber, we'll cover that. But again, I'll probably have to put a thumbnail up with a silhouette and just play it by ear a little bit. Either way, I'd be amazed if it's not a midfielder. Welcome Tyrone to the chat. How you feeling, Tyrone? Like clearly, I think Man United are kind of like tying up a few loose ends at the moment. Natasha's saying you think it's Belieber to United. It could be. I think I can't remember if I saw a number, so maybe it depends on the price, how much it's going to be. But I think at the moment, I would say based on the chat, it's probably a lot of people want Fernandez, a lot of people want Gomez. Jim wants. Do you want four, or you just throwing out candidates as like a possible first deal? No, I think if you're going to guess the first deal, I would say you could also put Alex Scott into to that category. So honestly, I think it's really difficult to actually predict which midfielders Manchester United will join. The fact there's actually quite a lot of options makes me feel a little bit relaxed about it. That we're going to go for a couple. Let's hope again. If United see Hackney as a player they want to sign, why not get him done quite quickly? Because I think Hackney will be a player that if you're a player of the Championship, someone's going to try and buy you. And I'd hate to see teams like Sunderland that seem to be a bit more proactive sometimes. I'd hate to see like a Sunderland or Forest get Hackney for 30 million. So I do think that somebody yesterday was saying that potentially Hayden Hackney is lined up to replace Anderson. If that is the case, then clearly for Hackney it's a great move to Nottingham Forest. But again, it's a difficult situation, isn't it? Yeah, I think with this one, it's like saying if Borough can't get promoted, we will move. Then do you think it changes the price? At the moment, I thought that there's a bit of a doubt whether Hayden Hackney can actually play in the playoffs. Anyway, I think he might have picked up a knock, so I'm not sure the situation. But I think he potentially has a bit of an injury at the moment, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to help Middlesbrough get into the Premier League. So maybe there's going to be. I think with someone like Hayden Hackney, maybe there could be. I think it would be about 30, which again seems to be good value. But that might be for me a deal that Man United should be going for. Again, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Hayden Hackney is like my key signing, but what I'm saying is it represents a player that, yeah, he could be like your fourth midfield option or your third midfield option if you're going to buy 3 to 4 midfielders. And I think it should be definitely a consideration, given that price as well. But I think Hayden Hackney is also not going to be demanding of the game time that we're going to be. We're going to give too many that first team football. I think if we signed Alex Scott, he's probably going to want to play a decent amount of football. I think that the problem is going to be that we can't sign 4 players and they all start, can we? So it's going to be a it's going to be I suppose a balancing act with how many players do you buy that you go right. You're going to be a first team player at Manchester United. You're going to be starting every single week because I think Mainoo's going to be, and Bruno Fernandes if he stays will certainly be. The question is going to be what combination of players can you get to complement those players. It's not the worst problem, is it, for United? There's a lot of good options out there. It's just about trying to get the best possible situation. And maybe what United need to do is maybe confirmation of Michael Carrick or confirmation of an alternative to Michael Carrick might be the first thing that happens. So it might be that we confirm the manager, confirm the head coach first, and then that maybe that influences the target very slightly. So maybe you're looking at Gomez or Hackney, maybe you're looking at Angela Stiller or I don't know, Alex Scott or another Premier League player. So it could be dependent on the manager. It could, I think, it could maybe sway your transfer window a little bit. I mean, I don't think we're going to get Anderson, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. Natasha said, I said Carrick would go after Middlesbrough players because they're cheaper. I think that honestly, that I would say that Hayden Hackney has been on the radar for a long time. Like this wouldn't be the first time that Hayden Hackney's been talked about. We talked about him in January. We talked about him the end of last year as well. I think we talked about Chris Rigg, but there's a couple of players that United have been monitoring. The fact that he played for Carrick is probably a bonus if Michael Carrick's head coach. I think that's all you could say. It would be a slightly more likely, but again, Manchester United may look at other alternatives. But if not, then like Tyrone's saying, I think there's apparently interest from Forest. I think he'd be a good option for Forest as well. So I think Forest could sell a player for potentially 100 million, replace him with a player that costs 30. If they get promoted, maybe the price goes up a little bit. But I would suggest for Forest, that's a really good deal. So if it's a good deal for Forest, then I think it's not a bad deal for Man United. I don't mind buying players from the Championship. If you see this, if you see the trajectory as being a year in the Championship, being the best player in the Championship, you then join the Premier League. Why not buy them at that stage? Why wait till they play for a Premier League team and then cost 50, 60 million? Like, yeah, 2 years ago, we could have bought Anderson. A lot of people might have questioned the move then, saying he can't even get to Newcastle's team. Why are we buying him? But 2 years fast forward, and suddenly he's going to cost potentially 100 million. So again, if you're gonna buy too many and you're going to buy Belieber, you may as well buy a cheaper option to go alongside those players that make sense long term. But that's kind of the reason why when Hayden Hackney was talked about as being a replacement at Nottingham Forest for Anderson, I mean that's just another reason why it's worth trying to get him, doesn't it? So I mean we could have got him in January for 30. Danny's saying if promoted, bit more expensive. I guess the financial issues at Middlesbrough change, don't they? If they get promoted, then clearly, if they get promoted, they're going to have more money, and they're going to try and do what Sunderland did, aren't they? Sunderland did really well. They bought wisely. They stayed up quite comfortably in the end in the Premier League, and I think that might be the model for teams coming up. You've got to buy some quality. You've got to make sure you've got enough depth because even though Sunderland started off strong, they did have a bit of a bump in the road. They did start dropping points and losing games. They did lose heavily actually to Nottingham Forest last time out as well. So you need to have depth as well as having some quality. So if Hayden Hackney gets promoted and Middlesbrough get promoted, I think they need to get more money. They need to raise the price for him because they'd have to make sure they replace him with some quality, and it'd be kind of difficult then. Danny's saying you can't see him leaving Borough. No, so if Middlesbrough get promoted, Hayden Hackney might cost too much. It might be, because we might start looking at other options that are going to cost like that one. Like you're saying, Agate is ready to join Galatasaray for 34 million. Um, So I've seen this. I've seen stories linking Agate to, I think it was like AC Milan as like a Rafa Leao kind of deal, sort of swap. Also been linked to Juventus. I think the key thing here is lucky is that there's at least a few teams looking, to try and get Agate. So that's quite positive. I think that's a good thing to note. And Funchy says that there's definitely a few people to consider. So if Hayden Hackney's price becomes too expensive, then it's a factor, isn't it? So you thought Agati was 25. I think Manchester United want to get a minimum of 25, but let's be honest, if you can get more money, then 100% you do. 100%. Say, what's your take on Vitek, who's doing well at Bristol City? Do you see him as a second choice goalkeeper over? I think he's levels better than Binder, levels better. I think the only problem with Vitek is I think he wants to be a number one goalkeeper, and he might see being second choice as not what he wants long term. So I think if Vitek's happy to come back as backup to Lamans, I think 100% it's an excellent. It actually solves the problem for Manchester United. I think it's an excellent piece of news if that's the case. If he doesn't want to be backup, then we've got a potential problem and he might have to get sold. But I think he's got some quality, and he was one of the best players. I think he's that one of the best players of the championship as well. Like he had a good season, so I think my take is that he's an excellent player, but it's one for the future as well. I don't think he can force his way into Man United's first team plans at the moment because Lamans is doing so well. But it would be great to have him as a backup. But potentially he's a backup for a short amount of time. If he wants to be a first team player somewhere else, and I think he does, I think he wants to be a first team player at whatever club he plays for. It might be that Manchester United maybe get a season out of him as backup, and then we have to sell him and replace him. But uh, I don't know. We'll have to see. He's good enough. It depends if he's happy with the role. So you thought Ariola was linked to Chelsea? He might be, but this is the news which has been like everywhere today. There's been news about saying if Manchester United don't keep Carrick as manager, then Ariola seems to be at the moment the only one that's likely to take that position. So again, I think it looks like we potentially could be almost like saying, right, this is going to happen. It's going to be a done deal. So I think it's going to be a done deal, and Michael Carrick's going to be in charge. And I don't know if people have strong feelings about that. But as far as I can see, the options on the table might be Ariola or Michael Carrick. But we'll discuss kind of the Mainoo situation, and we will come to the manager situation in a second. But in terms of this, do you see Mainoo as being guaranteed first team player? And are we looking to get players that play alongside him? Where do you see his role in the team as well? Because looking at Mainoo, he's just turned 21. Clearly, he's going to be a first team player next season. He's been a first team player pretty much every game is available since January. The one game he missed was the Leeds defeat, and I think we missed him in that match. We missed Maguire as well, and he's going to be a key first team player next season. If you're looking for someone to play alongside him, I think too many is probably ticks most of the boxes to try and replace Casemiro. But I think also United will be considering that Kerry Mainoo will miss games as well, will need some backup, will occasionally need to not start every single game, particularly during busy schedules as well. So we might be looking for someone that can come in and do what Kerry Mainoo does. And that's why people are looking at, say, would Fernandez be a good option? Would we be looking at Alex Scott as a good option? Like, there's some very good midfield players that if they're in and around the squad, they're not necessarily a like for like replacement for Mainoo, or they might not be, the perfect fit with other particular midfielders. But maybe we're looking at gradually getting like three or four options that we can build around and have a good core of players. I say Mainoo can be our vintner. I mean, I'll say with Mainoo, it's honestly difficult to predict like his career trajectory. It's very difficult to say how good he's going to be in a couple of years. Natasha says Anana will be back at United. If he's back at United, I hope it's just to visit this and do a stadium tour because he's not going to be allowed on the pitch, I don't think. So there's no way that Anana comes back to Manchester United as a football player, is there? Whatever anybody thinks. So And Anana might put out. Do you remember when we saw interviews with Rasmus and Rasmus said, I'm going to fight for my place," but we knew he was going to be moved on. I think it's the same sort of thing. Like Anana can't say too much, but Trabzonspor want to keep him. He's not going to cost a lot of money wherever he goes, so it's not going to be too much. Welcome to the chat, Gaz. Good to see you. So looking at this one, any idea what Mainoo is being paid weekly? I think it's something like 135 as a rough guess, but again, it depends how much is a base salary, how much is bonuses. There's the Champions League bonus on top of that as well. So I think people are thinking it's going to be somewhat similar to Euro as a benchmark, but yeah, I guess it's going to be there's going to be I don't want to get too worried about how much he's getting paid. I think he's obviously going to get paid more than he was before because he was an academy player. Now he's a first team player, England international. So I think yeah, whatever he gets paid now is going to be absolutely fine. In a couple of years' time, if you're looking at players in the first team, he's going to get paid less than Lindelof was when Lindelof was barely doing a thing. He's going to get paid less than others. I think this is essentially the guess that people are thinking about 150 with all the bonuses. So however you want to break it down, it could be like 120 plus 50 plus 30 or 135 plus 15. It's the total amount. The maximum would be with Champions League football about 150. So be it to you, Chris. Good to see you in the comments. So yeah, now if you're looking at that I thought about 120 for a base, but then you can add on other things as well, and it would have been roughly like 150 max. So you're looking at deals that are going to be obviously less than Embuemo, less than Cunha, but he's less experienced. But it's going to be similar to the sort of money that we give Euro, I think, something like that. Maybe slightly more than Euro, but then yeah, he's a first team player. Euro probably isn't really a first team player week in, week out in our strongest 11. So no, it's this is based on merit, isn't it? Kobe Mainoo is the reason why we've got Champions League football. That's he's a big factor in our performances. Tyrone says it's amazing, isn't it, that Amron didn't give Kobe a chance. Now he's gone. Kobe. Yeah, what can you say? What can you say? I don't know. Managers have different ideas, and we could have been talking about Kobe Mainoo getting sold. And to be honest, if he'd been sold, we wouldn't have got loads of money for him. So it's probably we probably got lucky there that it was a yeah, it was that we kept him and Amram went. But I don't know. And did people see the so he finally gets more than Cheeto? Exactly. Exactly. I think people were like looking at what percentage pay rise he gets, but he was on the academy contract. People need to just relax. So we're not talking about the sort of deal that Sancho got as a similar sort of age player. We're talking about a sensible contract. I say some people on Twitter think 150K is obscene for a 21-year-old. I would say forget the age of the player. If you say is £150,000 a week obscene for a Manchester United first team player, then I would say it's about that's kind of the value that. Do you get players that play in the first team for Manchester City that are regular first team starters that get paid 150? You probably Gallagher gets paid 200. I would. There's no way I would take Gallagher from Spurs over Kobe. The money is crazy compared with like people like us, but in terms of football world, it's just normal market value, isn't it? That's the thing. You have to distance yourself from like the figures and just look at it and go, well, Manchester United have what a turnover of like 650 million, and they have a big turnover, but they spend it on players as well. To put it into context, I think Verts is on over 200K a week. I think he might be similar age. He's possibly getting closer to 300 as well. It is a big contract he's on as well. So, so no, I think most people are saying generally this is a positive, isn't it? Then, do I feel Armadillo needs to be sold? I think Armadillo is 23, and I think you have to look at these players and say they still have room to improve. It could be potentially a big season for Armadillo. I think what's happened is that the floor has been raised of our team. We've got better football players in, and Armadillo is not, it's not the first name on the team sheet like he might have been 12 months ago. There's competition for places, so yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult because you do need to have like a decent amount of depth. I don't see Man United selling Armadillo at the moment, but it could be a combination of either Amajalo's kind of like hit the level he can play at, or possibly Amajalo just had a bit of a bit of a bad season. No, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Tricky one. Yeah, Gaz saying, I would also say as well, don't forget, Manchester United are Manchester United have got how many players are we selling? We're going to sell Agate, we're going to sell Xerxes, we're going to be selling Rasmus, we got Rashford, we got all these players we're selling. Anana as well. Bindy is going to be sold. There's all these players we're selling. I don't. People are saying we should sell Dallo and Luke Shaw and Almajolo. Like we can't sell all these players. We have to be realistic. I think in terms of like the people that were loaned out and looking at Xerxes and looking at Agate, they're probably the sales we're going to be doing. So yeah, Almajolo still features in match-winning squads. Almajolo still makes a contribution. It's just not been as good as what we've seen from other players at certain points this season. I mean, Mbuemo's going through a bit of a rough time. Benjamin Sesko was struggling to get into the team. I think this happens for a lot of players, but no, this will happen, and Manchester United just need to, yeah, just like work with the coaches the same way that Yoro had some bad games. Aiden Heaven will have some ups and downs. You can't move all these players out just because and so yeah, Dallo and Shaw, yeah, get some competition in first. Like if you want to sell Dallo, get some competition in. And Mazraoui, I'm not sure if Mazraoui is going to be like a long term option either. Like he's decent, but he does have similar kind of vulnerabilities that Dallo has. So I don't think there's anybody that's going to be in the squad benching at the moment. I'm not sure there's people coming through the academy that are going to suddenly take their places. I would suggest like buying someone like Kadioglu is pretty decent, not really expensive, could play left or right, maybe a good squad option if we're looking at boosting defence, which I quite like. And Funches that I really love our current salary scale range. I say Delit's the highest earner under Ineos with say 198, and he was probably on quite a lot of Bayern. So yeah, I think if you're looking at the wage structure, things seem to be in line. Maybe with if Delit is the highest earner under Ineos or recently, then yeah, maybe that one's not working out quite so well. But no, I think you need to like build around like some of these players. Like for me, there's options like that. If you're looking at Luke Shaw, like Luke Shaw's played every single match this season, and United need to probably get if you want to replace him or move him on, then yeah, maybe if you want to sell him, this would be the season to sell him because this has probably been his best season in terms of staying fit and available and potentially playing for England in the World Cup. But then you would have to make sure you get a replacement in. So it would be like an extra deal you need to do. If United did sell Luke Shaw, I'd be genuinely surprised. But it would be that maybe we would surprise people in this window. And then so, the delay could be one of these unfortunate situations where, unfortunately, before the injury, he was doing really well. Okay, saying Mainoo has earned it. Is this going to be? Is this in line with what fans want to see? That Kobe Mainoo comes into the first team a couple of seasons ago, maybe has a. No, we're probably looking at blaming the head coach for the start of the season, and I can't really say Mainoo played badly for the 6 months before Carrick came in because we just didn't see Mainoo starting any games. He didn't start a single league game, so he was pretty much frozen out of the team, and I'm not really sure what the reason was. But since he's come back into the first team, it's no surprise to me that results have improved a lot because he's a lot better than Agate. And it's no surprise that we're talking about Kobe Mainoo signing an extension and we're talking about where does Agate get sold to. So clearly, I don't know would have happened if we didn't replace Ruben Amorim. Maybe we'd be keeping, I don't know if we'd be keeping Agate because it's still a struggle to see him succeeding, but it might be that we have to replace everybody in midfield. Like it might be that Mainoo got loaned out in January. It might have been that we panic bought someone in January that wasn't great, and we might be in more of a mess. So I think keeping Mainoo and moving on Amarin is probably a decision that Ineos got right. And I think with hindsight, and even at the time, I thought it was the right decision. It could be one of those. It could be one of those like sliding door moments where you've done a good option there as well. Now, do injured players get full weekly? I think they get pretty much the standard money, Howard. They're not going to suddenly go down to 60 quid with it. They'll be getting a fortune, I'm sure. So they probably I would say I don't know the details, but you do get appearance bonuses, don't you? And things so you'll get your basic salary, which will still be astronomical, but you won't get as much as probably other players that are getting appearance bonuses or other bonuses, etc. So it's probably quite complicated. Welcome to the chat, Gaz, and good to see you, Gaz. Hope you're looking forward to the match on the weekend, and I hope hopefully you got some opinions on the Mainoo situation as well. It's no surprise, is it? But 5-year contract. I think this represents that United are gradually putting the building blocks in to try and maybe stabilise the squad. Where you've got a good goalkeeper now at the team, you've probably got a combination of some experience in the centre back positions, but also potentially, yeah, if Aiden Heaven kicks on, and we see Mainoo, so and we see Yoro maybe improve as well, work on his weaknesses. Then potentially between those two, we've probably got one centre back that could play in the club for like the next 8, 10 years, so quite a long time. And if we're looking at this summer transfer window, I feel like we need to buy like an elite midfielder or one of the best midfielders that we think is available on the market to try and build around that core with Mainoo. And I think that could be transformational in terms of like how Manchester United do over the next few years. And then we could look at tweaking other aspects of the team. But I think it could be that we get gradually more building blocks in place. And if you make some good signings, then I think it's in, yeah, I'd say, I think it's like appropriate considering if you took every Man United player and looked at how many games they're going to play, compare, I say Yoro is probably the player I compare him with because I think it's similar sort of age, sort of similar experience, but I would say at the moment, if you're looking at those two players, I think we get better performances from Mainoo, and I think he should get paid more than Yoro. If you're going to compare those two players and impact, I would probably say he should get paid more. But people will disagree. It's fine, but I don't think we can say we're overpaying him too much. And Funchy says the best balance from midfield is going to be someone who has what Manu doesn't have. And I think too many will believe it. Like too many for a start really stands out as being probably the best, not necessarily the best complementary player person for Manu, but I think the best fit for what our team requires as well. But and you got some speed, you got great tackling. Actually, Mainoo does win the ball back a lot. Mainoo does win the ball back a lot as well. So there's definitely going to be yeah some options there as well. So I think you've got two people that can win the ball back. I think they're going to be some. No, I mean, too many would have the experience as well. Apparently, if you compare too many with Tonali, and I kind of compare them a little bit sometimes based on because of their age as well. I think too many is actually significantly better than Tonali in the air. So if you're looking at say too many versus Tonali, I think overall the deal will cost quite similar. But if you're looking at the deal, those two as an option, too many is actually slightly better tackling wise. He's actually better in the air. I think he's the closest one, possibly to like maybe the closest thing to replacing Casemiro if you could do that. So again, I think when we're looking at moving on from our team, that we don't necessarily need to get exactly what Casemiro was as a player, and maybe what we get from too many is someone that might be able to cover the ground a bit quicker than Casemiro. Probably isn't going to have the attacking input. So if you look at Casemiro, he's become almost like a match winner in himself in terms of goal scoring. I think too many wouldn't do that, but too many would be able to be more defensive. We might actually see, if you remember seeing Mainoo against 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 Brentford a few nights ago, and that kind of like run he went on where he then set up Almajalo for an early chance. Then I think we might see more of that sort of play from Mainoo if we got someone like too many in. So I think too many would sit deeper. He would be more like protecting the back four, built maybe linking defence with midfield, but also, he is pretty mobile, so maybe he could get forward a bit more as well. I think we could be looking at a situation where you look at it and go, Mainoo might be able to play a bit further forward if we get too many. So you know how we used to have this. Do you remember this phrase people used to say? Can you unlock like certain players in the past? I think you can maybe unlock Kobe Mainoo's attacking potential, or just maybe see Kobe Mainoo play a bit further forward and my prediction would be if Kobe Mainoo plays a bit more advanced and gets involved a bit more in the attacking play, I think some fans would rate him more because I think people always rate goals and assists and look at impact. And if someone does good defensive work or someone tracks back tracks back effectively, or kind of does the things that go a bit under the radar, I think people might actually look at that as being a factor. So I saw Niche Fan and Malps, you're saying that you think we should have sold Manu, and you're welcome to your opinion. I don't share your opinion on this point. I think that based on like the performances, I think Ko Manu, like if there's things you don't like about Manu, then feel free to put them in there. But I think people like different things. I know people like pacey players. They like people that are, but maybe if you got too many, I think we might see a difference, like a complete difference between who's playing alongside Mainoo and what sort of player Mainoo looks like. I'd say Statman Dave. I'll have to check out some of his breakdowns, but again, I think if you're looking at what Mainoo does in Manchester United's team, I think he could play as a six. Like he could do that as well. He's got great decision making. You can't press him. You can't put him under pressure. You see, he makes really good decisions. He reminds me a little bit of Roy Keane when Roy Keane was playing more of a six. Because I think with Kobe Mainoo, it's almost like if you try and press him, he's got the strength to hold you off, but also he can pick out a short pass. He's extremely good at that. The only thing Kobe Mainoo doesn't really have is probably the more medium long passing, which is something which can be worked on. And I think, to be honest, that wasn't really Roy Keane's forte either. So, but again, it's not. I can't. I'm not going to say Coman is the perfect player because he's 21. He's just turned 21. But if you're looking at what he brings to the team, and so what I'll do is I'll go through a few comments and I'll try and pick them out as we're discussing this. Like Gaz says, Maine's not perfect, but if we'd sold him, you think it would have been a big mistake. But if we'd have sold him, I just don't think we'd get a lot, like a lot of money for him. I think we'd have actually it would have been a little bit tricky. So let me jump through the comments as well. So it's like a new signing. Um, no, it is a well, effectively this one. Danny's saying you think he's similar to a Stiller or a Bittner. I mean, Bittner's probably I would say at the moment he's probably going to be the go-to benchmark for top quality, isn't he, at the moment? So if you look at like Bittner's high praise, but again, Bittner wasn't regarded like this at. So you feel Maine's more similar to Skulls. It depends what we're describing here. I think when I used to watch Roy Keane, when he first broke in, he was an incredibly attacking player, and he used to be like looking to try and finish runs. But if you look at what Roy Keane can do, well, I was comparing one aspect of Roy Keane's game and saying Roy Keane short passing game where he wins the ball back, passes it to Skulls. I think with Skulls, I guess what you're saying here, you think Mainoo is similar to Skulls. I probably disagree, Varel, on maybe we're looking at different aspects, but I think Skulls wasn't great at tackling. Mainoo is very good at tackling, winning the ball back. He does have that sort of attribute. I think Skulls had. I think I watched Skulls play live, and his that he used to control the game by passing it quite a long way to the left, and the ball would come back to Skulls. He'd like think it to the right, and Skulls had this unreal sort of like timing and passing, and used to be able to really control the game. I don't think Mainoo is going to be the sort of like that sort of conductor of the game at the moment. It's possible that it's possible that Mainoo could evolve his game, but I think watching. So if you sit in the Stretford end or the other end, and you watch Scholes play when towards the end of his career, where he was more of a controlling player. He used to be almost like Scholes didn't have to run around too much. He just used to shift the ball from left to right and effectively pick the best option to kind of conduct the attack. I think at the moment, Maine's central, but he doesn't have the passing range. But I think at the moment we probably say Cunha and maybe probably Cunha and Bruno Fernandes have the passing range from that sort of position. But again, there's lots of different aspects to midfield players' games, and I think that no, this isn't like a competition, but it's just I think that for me, I saw Scholes as going to be, and also Scholes and Keane evolved over their career. So maybe a question for Real and other people is like, what do you think? Like, how do you see the development of a player like Mainoo evolving? Because we're having a discussion here, and people would say that they think that Mainoo can play further forward, which I think he can. I think we saw when we were looking at so Scholes could tackle, but it was kind of like a 50-50 whether it's getting a yellow, wasn't it? So it's really tricky, isn't it? So no, I think if you're looking at Mainoo, I think Mainoo's a different sort of player at the moment. Okay, it's a football's about opinions, and I like Mainoo. If you listed the players you like in our team, they might be different to mine. But I think with Mainoo, it feels like with Mainoo, he keeps things quite simple. He doesn't try to overcomplicate football. If there is like some space to run into, he's happy to run into. If there's like some short passes on, he tends to pick out those as a priority, I feel. But if you put Kobe Mainoo in sort of Bruno's position, I think he would be someone that I don't think he's got the quality of passing that Bruno's got at the moment, but I do think he does make some pretty good decisions. So I do think he would be able to at least know set up players, but I think it's more ball to feet than kind of like thinking it over the top or some of the passing shapes that Bruno creates. I think that's kind of unique to Bruno. But I think Koemanu is a different threat. He's potentially better running with the ball than Bruno Fernandez is. I think he's got really good feet. And he's a different player to Bruno, but I don't think we can. It's really difficult comparing him to exactly one player. I think it's just one where I like Mainoo, and I'm actually genuinely interested. Like say with Gaz saying, I'm actually just wondering where does Mainoo play? And I think it depends on midfielders. So if somebody said we're going to buy too many, I would be quite excited because I think too many is someone that could be incredibly good defensively in our midfield, make us hard to play through, and it would make me think actually, is Mainoo going to be go forward a bit more, getting involved with Bruno in the attack? I'd be interested to see how that works out. But if we sign someone like Belieber, you think, okay, Belieber has got his marauding runs, he's great at progressing the ball. Is Cody Mainoo going to be that sort of six? Like, is he going to try and do a little bit what Scholes did, but maybe the passing's going to be yeah, a bit more on point? Is going to be setting up Belieber, but also is he going to be working on sort of long passing? Because he's only 21. I can't remember Scholes playing at 21, to be honest. So I think when you're looking at Scholes at 21, he was probably more a goal scoring midfielder than anything. And I can't remember actually what age it was. So if you can remember what age Scholes kind of really broke through at, I forget what age it was. But to compare him with Mainoo, I think Mainoo obviously started a bit younger. So it's slightly tricky to compare them at the same age. But I think what was required in the team, don't forget, Manchester United had Roy Keane, and when they got when Scholes came through in the team. So clearly Roy Keane had like his position sorted out. Scholes then had to adapt to what we required, and I think it's the same with like Mainoo at the moment. That with like play with Casemiro, then Mainoo's kind of adapted to what's required in this team. If you got say too many and believe are quite different players, I mean Anderson's quite a different player as well. It's quite hard to say, isn't it? And so yeah, Scholes. I mean, the thing is, like with Scholes, when you think of like prime Scholes or Scholes in his best years at Manchester United, he's playing quite defensive, and he's generally more of a deep line playmaker, and it's about the range of passing. Whereas Scholes, when he first came through, there's a reason why the song was Paul Scholes, he scores goals because he was a goal scorer. He was playing as a forward in early days as well, but he was generally one of these players that played as a second striker or just run through and he did. He was well known for just having a very good finish, and I just remember like, he scored some amazing goals. So this is something that Scholes wasn't doing the sort of things he was doing in the last 5 years of his career in his first couple of seasons. So that was something that happened when Roy Keane moved on. So Roy Keane was doing that to start with, like driving the team forward. It's just different, isn't it? So that's why I'm saying I'm kind of open-minded because I don't know what the evolution of Mainoo is going to be. Like he's like 21 years old. He's probably still growing, and he's probably still got a bit of. He's going to have to. He's got a bit of strength stuff to come, which will naturally come. And so Scholes' debut. Thank you, Yali. 19-year-old. But I'm guessing with this one, when Scholes made his debut at 19, it probably was going to be quite difficult to establish himself in that team. Like United would have they would have a lot of good players at that point. So it could be, it could be that they do have a situation where Mainoo might not be guaranteed to be guaranteed to be starting anyway next season. Dhexian saying Mainoo doesn't get replaced by too many or Belieber, they enhance his game. So we won't buy both. So yeah, interestingly, this one saying we won't buy both. I think with Mainoo, say too many and Belieber, if you bought too many, then or Belieber, I think they could both work with Mainoo, but also too many plus Belieber in itself as well works. So I don't see why Man United can't try and buy both those players if they're available. And then that's going to be what, £70 million each? So 140 million, and then you could get, I know, like João Gomez or other players to go. So I think when you start looking at potentially 60, £70 million, I think Man United could be, there could be in that situation. Kate saying if we'd have sacked Fergie after 12 months, it wouldn't have been the same. But I think that Fergie had a different role at Manchester United. Like he was effectively overseeing a lot more things, like rejuvenating the academy. So I think it was a different situation in football. If you went back to the 80s, every manager probably got multiple years. Like this isn't just a Manchester United thing, and it used to be that other managers in different leagues. So I think with this one that it was different. Like Amrin and Eric Ten Hag, maybe Amrin and Carrick, they just don't get as much time, etc. So no, but so going through this one as well. Big up to you, Mr. B. Have I spoken about Areola yet? It's a shame you're after him because you want him as Brighton manager. I think Newcastle fans are also linked. Areola feels like the Areola feels like the manager that's going to be linked to every team. So it might be that no, Bournemouth have done incredibly well. He's going to be linked everywhere, isn't he? But honestly, I do not know. I'd say if we'd have sacked Ron Atkinson after 12 months, we wouldn't have. Um, I think what's difficult is like with hindsight, things might be running differently, but Ron Atkinson did sign Brian Robson, so I'll give him that credit. He did sign Brian Robson, and we did win the FA Cup against a very good Everton team in '85. But yeah, I take that. I take your point that things would be very different. I can't even remember when Ron Atkinson got appointed. I started supporting Manchester United about like the very end of Ron Atkinson's time, so I don't know loads about how Ron Atkinson had done until then. Um, yeah, Agate is going to be getting a deal from either Galatasaray, AC Milan, Juventus. So he's not going to be. Agate's not getting a new deal. I'll say if you don't want to see if you don't want to see Koemanu playing for Manchester United, you might have to stop watching Man United because he's been a regular in the first team since January. There was and maybe the question should be if you're not so keen on Mainoo, what is it you don't like about his game? Like what do you not like about his game regarding this one? Did I say Brighton? No, I know you sport. I say he's done very well at Bournemouth. That I know you're a Brentford fan. There's too many teams I talk about because I talk about Brentford a lot with like the recent game, and I talk about Brighton a lot because we're trying to buy players from Brighton. And then Bournemouth, there's a lot of B's to remember, Mr. B. So I apologise if I said you support Brighton. I mean, no one wants to support Brighton, do they? No, Agate's not staying. Yost says Areola is a no-brainer to me. What it's done at the resource, say a club like Bournemouth, say losing star after star. If I was going to pick, if Michael Carrick said I don't want the job, which is never going to happen, and I had to make a decision, it would be it would be generally difficult to find an option that's better than Areola at the moment. Like Areola's got a combination of getting the best performances out of players. Can you imagine if Manchester United that we lost our best player in January? That's what happened with Bournemouth, and they actually seem to improve. So I think Areola is definitely a candidate. Like if you've said Michael Carrick can't be manager, pick one, then I would go for Areola. Like I think he's the best one that I've seen linked. Like Nagelsmann feels a bit risky and there's a bit of uncertainty, but it could be good, could be it could go the other way. There's De Zerbi, there was a few other people linked. I think Areola for me would be probably the best option apart from Carrick that I've seen. That's the only thing I could think of. But no, just to try and get some balance. If you don't like Mainoo or you think Mainoo is like, what is it you think that is not quite so positive about him? And Biaz said maybe people think Mainoo does too many sort of backwards, sort of sideways passing, which I think sometimes it's necessary depending on how the team approaches you, how he plays. I would say they're looking at the best options. They're looking at some of our best performances this season. What are our best games? I think the first half against Brentford was a good one. If you're looking at potentially, now it's got to be like the Arsenal game, isn't it? And the Man City game. And Kobe Mainoo was very good in those games. So it's different, isn't it? Also, so I think all the midfield player targets we're looking at, like all the targets we're looking at in terms of replacing midfielders, they're all a couple of years older than Mainoo. So Mainoo's 2 years younger than Anderson. I think he's like at least a year or two younger than Wharton. He's 4 years younger than Tonali. There's a lot of development to come from Mainoo. That Marps thinks yeah, but Marps, why do you think he's overrated? Like what do you think he's not good at? Like, but no, if Manchester United do want Areola, I think there's genuine interest. And if I was Ariola, clearly the Man United job's the biggest job available, but Newcastle United could be quite a tempting job, particularly as considering what's happened this season. I think there's going to be, considering what's happened this season, I think Newcastle United might be. You think Kobe Mainoo's passing? You don't like his passing? But what's wrong? What's wrong with his passing? It's incredibly accurate. He doesn't give the ball away. If you're looking at someone that he's not doing uh, 60-yard passes, but what do you want him to do? He doesn't lose possession. Have you seen Agate play? Like if you watch Agate play, it's literally kick it straight to somebody else. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the number. I don't have the stats to hand, but I think the passing percentages of Mainoo are pretty good. Now, I don't like to talk too much about other managers, but I would say if I was forced to choose a non-Carrick appointment, I think Ariola would be good. And say lacks proper defensive awareness, doesn't provide significant profile midfield. But if you say he lacks defensive awareness, I think he's won the ball back more than any other team. I'm not no, I'm not. This isn't an argument, Mubs. So honestly, you're welcome to your opinion. Again, I appreciate that. I've got a forum where I can talk, so it's not as easy to kind of disagree. But again, I'll say try and keep comments in the chat cordial if possible. I know people will dis. To be honest, I didn't really think that this would be divisive. To be honest, I thought most people would be happy that Mainoo's extended his contract because since he's been in the team, it's been a kind of transformation of our season, and we're finishing third in the league. But one thing I would say is if there's players you think in the Premier League that are a much better option, and if you say right, for example, if says Tyrone, if you think this is a question for people that think Mainoo maybe isn't as good, okay. If you think Mainoo's not very good at a certain aspect of his game, find a player you think is better, and then have a look statistically to see if you're correct. Because when people talk about Bruno Fernandes and they say Bruno's very wasteful, Bruno gives the ball away, no player's got close to the amount of chances Bruno's created. And if you look at the pass completion rate, Bruno Fernandes, for a very risky player, a player that takes chances, his pass completion rate is actually pretty high. It's probably like a couple of percent different to someone like Odegaard, but the chance creation is about 10 times off. Like it's like so. I think honestly, Bruno Fernandes. I think based on like one or two poor games, people then assume Bruno Fernandes is incredibly wasteful. But again, if we take Bruno Fernandes out of our team, we literally don't create any chances at all, do we? Or we haven't done. So, I think with this one that Maine's defensive awareness is actually quite good. That he's won the ball back quite a lot. So again, So JDC, I think this is the comment that you put in recently that I most agree with, saying that Co-Main is good. Like you say, you love the player, but I don't think any player should be a guaranteed starter. The only person that's a guaranteed starter at the moment, in my opinion, is probably Lamans. Like Lamans is a guaranteed starter because Deer is nowhere near the level, and Lamans has been consistently good. Apart from that, like if we signed, for example, if we signed too many and we signed, who else am I thinking of? Too many plus Belieber or Alex Scott or whoever it is, then they should be fighting for. No, Kate Mainoo shouldn't. No, I don't think Manchester United are at Carrington today saying, "Well done, Mainoo, you start every single game." Of course not. Mainoo knows the hard work's still ongoing. He's 21, but he's not the finished article. If he wants to play for Manchester United till he's like 35, he's got to improve loads because the demands will be higher. Manchester United will be signing better players. It's like it's one thing being better than Nagate, but potentially he might have to be better than Tchouaméni or Baliba or Wharton or any other player that comes in. So again, I think with Mainoo, what I'm saying is I think there's a very good base level there. I think there's a good base in terms of he's composed, got very good feet, good short passing game, actually very decent running with the ball, very nice footwork and agile, glides through the pitch. I think it's difficult to tackle, it's difficult to dispossess. Defensive awareness, I think, is quite good. I think he does win the ball back a lot in the Manchester United team. And I think alongside Casemiro, who is considered an elite ball winner, I think Koeman's stats were actually pretty comparable. So I think it's quite difficult when you're watching games because it's really hard to kind of see one player and look at this. But now, as Gaz said, the fact that you're a Man United player for the next 5 years, even Cunha has to win his place. Like Cunha has to win his place, and Buemo has to win his place. Benjamin Sesko has to win his place. I think it's exactly the same as like Gaz is saying. I think every player's got to be mindful that you are not going to be first team guaranteed, are you? There is no guarantees. Hopefully, Alex Scott would work well mainly as Tyrone. How do you see that working, Tyrone? How do you see it working with? Are you looking at? Are you looking at Alex Scott being like? How do you see that mainly going further forward? Do you see how do you see that working, or both playing a bit, kind of a bit of both? Yeah, Spurs have major issues, don't they? Major issues. If I was going to do a stream about Spurs' issues, it would be like about 10 hours long. But no, I don't think we're interested in Spurs to be honest, are we? Um, Say mainly saying like 35 tackles. Is this over like is this season or is this because I suppose from this season would be probably going to be, I guess, January. So passing accuracy, what, nearly 90%. Key passes in 26 games is 23 key passes in 26 games, which is some decent stats. So I mean, Man United are third in the league, aren't they? So you could be looking at the fact that he has made a significant contribution. So Alex Scott and Mainoo are both eight, so it won't work. It can work. It depends how you're playing. If you get an understanding where Manchester United had, I suppose, like Roy Keane and Scholes, and you could take it in turns to go for. It takes understanding, and it takes maybe like a bit of. If you're going to get players like Alex Scott and you're going to get Mainoo in, it would take a bit of time to get the understanding there, and you would be having to, one person would have to know when to sit deep, and you could alternate a little bit. But no, I think with anything, it's going to take a bit of understanding. That's why I think it's going to be whoever we sign. There's going to be a bit of a learning curve because we're going to effectively start rebuilding our midfield from scratch, and all we're going to have is a Mainoo to start with. So whoever comes in, they're going to have to get used to playing however we want to play, and also have to get used to a lot of things going through Bruno. So you'd have to look at that as well. So no, again, it could be very positive for Mainoo. If we're going to buy more experienced players than Mainoo, I think it's actually good for Mainoo as well. He's going to learn. He learned a lot from Casemiro. He would learn loads from someone like Tchouaméni and other experienced players. Potentially though, if Mainoo's going to the World Cup, then potentially we could see how he does play with like some of the other English midfielders we're discussing. So maybe we do see like maybe he plays Van der Sar. Maybe Maybe just better than Anderson at the World Cup. Who knows? So you currently think Fernandez is the same age as a better player? It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because West Ham struggled a lot this season, and so I'm not going to say that was on Fernandez, but West Ham had some good players. They struggled a lot as well. I was saying, you think looking at Bittner, João Neves, they got some good players there. Are you talking about in terms of how you would organise midfield? Then yeah, that's the point. I think you can have you don't necessarily have to have a six and an eight. You could actually look for different options as well. And Gaz saying that maybe for England, Mainoo is actually the better partner for Rice. I mean, Declan Rice is almost certainly going to be in the team, but you got like you got Declan Rice, you got Anderson, you got Mainoo, you got Bellingham, you got some very good players in that team. And I'm not sure quite how it's going to be set up. And I guess there's going to be some sort of plan. I don't think we can learn too much from any friendlies we see beforehand, but no, I think Mainoo could have that. Mainoo's got the composure at the highest level. He was one of England's best players in the Euros couple of years ago, and they got to the final. So experience in big competitions. So I think Mainoo would be potentially could have a strong World Cup if he's there. So again, and we could be talking about maybe people. This is an interesting one. We're talking about Mainoo just signing his contract today. Maybe we could be having a conversation after the World Cup where Mainoo gets evaluated differently by people. So it could be that Ko Mainoo, if he does very well in the World Cup, people might have a different view. Because I think sometimes a big tournament does get, people might be a bit neutral when he's not in a Man United shirt, he's playing for England. People might be looking at him, how does he do compared with Declan Rice, who's very highly rated in the Premier League? How does he compare with Bellingham? How does he compare with Anderson? How does our midfield work for England when we're facing like some very top teams in the world? I think it'd be a bit interesting. So we can have a conversation after, can't we? Because we know Maine is going nowhere, and we can see how that's worked out. But no, I thought that was interesting as well. Um, you're putting up a few comments about Manchester United players this season. Let me just I'll try and find that comment again. So, Casemiro, Mainoo, Bruno, Maguire, and Dallo and Lamans is why we're third right now. I would say I think you probably have to put Luke Shaw in there as like Luke Shaw probably has to get credit this season. He's played every single match, and you know you have to be fair. So Luke Shaw's played every single match. Dallo has been regularly. He's not the worst player on the pitch most games. Like you have to give credit to these players. These players are the reason why we're third in the league, and these players are playing week in week out. So no, there's not too much you can say negative. Like Lamans gets credit, but I think if Manchester United go against if we when we win a couple of games recently, say so the club like you have to. I think you have to do that. I think that's like Manchester United can't sign any players until the transfer window opens. So the only thing they can do is maybe sort out the situation at the club as well and tie these players down. So I think it's like I would say it's kind of popular to yeah it does seem to be popular to criticise Manchester United players, but I think you have to look at the situation and say Manchester United are third in the league at the moment. So third in the league, I think Manchester United players should be getting credit. That it's popular to criticise players, but they're doing well. Like people say, Luke Shaw should be sold, and maybe people are sceptical that he's going to be. It's because it's an international year. I think, unfortunately for Luke Shaw, he's had some incredibly serious injuries, and to play at the level he's playing at the moment, considering the serious injuries he's had, I think he's doing about as well as he could do. I mean, I still think that United should be looking for the next generation of left back, so that's fine. But I think you have to give credit where credit's due. He's a reason why we're third. Maybe he's a reason why we're not first, but he's definitely a reason why we're third and not 10th in the league. So that's quite positive. So would people rather talk about midfielders or talk about Areola's story? Because there's probably two things we can discuss for the rest of the stream. Yeah, exactly. Like Luke Shaw's not been spectacular. It's not been Roberto Carlos, but it's not been useless, has he? He's been like dependable in a lot of games, and he's been a reason why Man United are putting in decent performances. Like if we don't have Luke Shaw in the squad, we don't have other options at the moment, do we? But what would people prefer to do? I'll go through the comments that aren't related to pork pies and go for that. We can talk about midfielders, Kerry Mainoo, or we can talk about Areola links because that's only alternative to probably the only alternative to Michael Carrick at the moment. What would people prefer? I'm kind of open-minded. I don't really mind. This is the story that I'll just put the story up there and I'll leave it to people's comments to see what you think. So, according to this is coming from like the Telegraph in the UK, but it seemed to be a few sources as well. For some reason, out of nowhere, about 2 hours ago, there was literally no. When I was looking for news, there was literally nothing out there. This is before Maine's contract got announced. There was literally nothing out there apart from Areola suddenly is the only option other than Michael Carrick. And I don't know if there's another story saying that Nagelsmann's all but ruled out, but it looks like suddenly out of nowhere, it's pretty much either Carrick or Areola. So, I mean, the thing that's interesting is that Areola is probably one of the best options we've had discussed since there's been speculation over who's going to be the head coach next year. So I kind of like look at this and think this is probably the only alternative I've seen where I thought, um, okay, this isn't actually too bad. It's the first time I've seen a story because every other story I looked at and thought, yeah, I'm not so keen on this one. Yeah, Yali, this is kind of if you want to see like a nice picture because clearly like Maine is really happy, which is good. If you want to see a nice picture as well, like his whole family there at Carrington today. So this is kind of what Manchester United is about, isn't it? When we're talking about bringing through academy players and the future, this is kind of this is the way that you sustain success. If you bring a player through the academy that's been there from like a very young age, and then you play for Manchester United, you represent England, you're signing a contract. That there's literally nothing negative about this at all. The question marks are going to be when people say, right, is Mainoo good enough? The questions really is that this is a 21-year-old that's signing for Manchester United in 20, when he's like 23, 24, 25. We could be talking about an exceptional player. But you then need to build around Mainoo. Like the academy is always there to augment the first team. You're going to have to buy quality players. Like the top teams are going to buy quality players. But if you can get people come through the academy that do maybe hold down that first team place or do feature heavily in the squad for 5, 10 years, it's something we haven't seen for a long time. We used to have loads of people coming through the academy, and in recent years, the people that come through the academy look at Garner at Everton now. We'd have him back. Look at other options like Alvaro Fernandez, we'd have him back. So now this is one that we could have messed up as well, but we didn't mess up. So that's where the positive lies, I think. The positive lies that other good academy players have come through and we've messed it up and the player's gone. That's the kind of the situation we saw years ago. So we almost did the same thing, didn't we? We almost had the same situation with Mainoo. So that's why I see this as a positive. Like for me, it's nothing but positive. Like there's no negativity about this whatsoever. The only thing I would say is, and again, I appreciate people have different views and things. The question mark is going to be that if Manchester United sign a couple of players around him, then I think it would be suddenly a very different situation, and we'd all be quite positive about this one as well. I would say, is Ariana cheap in terms of money as Michael Carrick? I actually have no idea. I would say that if you're looking at cheap, do you mean like salary wise? I'd say if Manchester United are looking at getting Areola, and that's a fair question, like what's the financial implications? I would suggest that if you're looking at Areola, don't forget Michael Carrick's an interim manager, so he's going to be gone at the end of the season if you don't extend it. Areola is actually out of contract with Bournemouth, so I don't. I think this is probably in terms of like deals, this is probably about as cheap as it gets. There's we don't have to buy him out of a contract. We can get him because he's out, he's free, he's available. I have no idea what he got paid at Bournemouth, but it's going to be nowhere near the sort of offer he's going to get from other clubs. We don't. How much would Newcastle pay him? Probably not as much as Man United. Is there any other serious option that he's looking at? I don't know. Newcastle seems to be the big story with Areola, but I think for Man United, I think he is cheap. I don't think we had to pay. I think we had to pay. How much do we have to pay for Ruben Amorim? I think we had to pay 10 million at least, or like maybe 50 million to get him out of his contract. So, oh no, no worries, no worries. Actually, they're they're probably pronounced, or I probably pronounced them the same sort of way, but no, it's not the Real Madrid one. It's the Bournemouth one. That's why I was quite positive in terms of like, no, if Michael Carrick wasn't an option, I would be reasonably positive. And I think the reason is because he's done really well at Bournemouth, but it's also, the performance is there, the player development's there. The only thing you could say is that neither of these two managers have been like, I don't know what, I can't remember what Ariola's record is before Bournemouth, but when you're looking at this, they're probably not as experienced as some options as well. Yeah, no worries. Would you take him? It's probably the question. But it is. I don't know where he's going to go, and where he's going to be going next season. But I think it's not a bad one, is it? Looking at these comments, welcome Berber to the chat. Let's put Mainoo back on by Ariola. No doubt you'll be a story at some point. But this one's for you, Ryan. It says Kobe showed a lot of character when we sacked Amrin. He could have been another Garnacho, got his head down, played well, so happy to keep him. Says Ryan. Yeah, I think most people are feeling the same sort of thing. Maybe the question for people that just joined the stream as well is, where do you see Kobe playing next season? Like Ryan, you've seen Kobe what he can do when he's further forward. I think didn't he get an FA Cup goal against, was it him that scored against, actually maybe it's Managerial, but we have seen him like when he's further forward. He's more than capable on the edge of the box, like picking out passes, beating defenders, causing problems. Or do you see him like actually defensively? There are a couple of people put some very good stats up on the screen during the stream, particularly about how much he's won the ball back, his percentage pass completions like 90%. He's actually, somebody put something up very early on in the stream as well, saying that passes into the box, dangerous passes as well. He's up there in terms of like what he's been doing. So I think he's got a, when you look at it, this is like some good defensive attributes, quite good offensive attributes as well. I think because Bruno Fernandes kind of controls everything attacking wise, he's never going to be getting lots of assists. And I think with people like Umbremo, Cunha, and Sesko, he's not going to be, he's not going to be on the end of chances, but that's not his game. And he's not the sort of player like Casemiro that can get, that he's got the aerial ability. So yeah, I'd just be interested to know what your thoughts are. Like, where does he play next season? Yeah, I like Cariola's playing style, 100%. Thanks for getting involved, Tony. It says Tony is a future 10. Yeah, do you know, I've probably watched, in terms of like a move which yielded no goal, I probably watched the kind of Mainoo body swerve, the way he goes past a few defenders and lays it off past the goalkeeper. It's just so nice, isn't it? He's got that ability. And if you think he's doing that under pressure where people are trying to get him as well, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. Let's say Maine is the future 10. Kawin, you say you disagree with Berber saying he showed a poor attitude under Amrin, which was telling. I don't know. Do you think he did show poor attitude? That I don't know if there was a lot of evidence out there, to be honest. So, I, in terms of like what he was doing, I don't know if there's lots of evidence out there whether it had a bad attitude. You're saying he's a better box-to-box version of Scott McTominay. I'm trying to think. So Scott McTominay for me is more of like a goal scorer. That I'd say. I think he's more of a goal scorer. And Scott McTominay, I think when we tried to play Scott McTominay as a six, I would say it was genuinely a bit of a disaster with Scott McTominay sometimes as a six. I think Scott McTominay is definitely a lot better further forward. But I know, interestingly, I suppose with Scott McTominay, he played in some teams that weren't very well set up either. So Danny sees him as a deep line playmaker, similar to Stiller or um, Vitinha. So you go, yeah, 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 maybe. The thing is, when we have this conversation, some people say he's a six, some people say he's a 10. I think all this means is that he's actually quite a good football player, and it could be that he can play, yeah, in different positions, a bit like Scholes used to, a little bit like Keane used to. I say 21 is quite young for a football player. His game can still change. He could be our Kante. a six, box to box. He's rapid in transition. Do you remember the do you remember the goal we scored against Brentford when we scored that goal? Very similar to the goal against Manchester City with Bruno Fernandes running out from the back. And people say that Bruno can't run, but you watch those two goals. Bruno Fernandes effectively runs half the length of the pitch. No one's getting near him. No one's actually putting any sort of tackle in. And then he picks out an almost perfect pass, and it leads to a winner against Manchester City, and it's also a winner against Brentford. I think when people look at these sort of things and say this player can't run, can't do, I think they can. But when you're saying like that these players can't run, you're probably comparing him to the fastest player in the league. And again, speed can be a little bit overrated in some instances. And I think in midfield, like dribbling ability, picking out pass, and actually decision making speed as well. I think it's going to be all evolving for Mainoo. I hope that went well. I guess that you do one eye at a time, so hopefully that that's not too bad in the near future. Gaz says Mainoo is a traditional centre midfielder. None of this 6, 8, or 10 stuff. He can do all those things. I like that. What's the best way of saying that then? Just versatile. I think he's just a good for me. He's just a good player. That that if we're going to argue about if there's like 10 people watching with different opinions or 20 people watching and everybody thinks Kobe can do something different, I think that gives you an idea, which means that he can do multiple things. Like you can look at the stats, can't you, and say that he can defend and he can defend to a high level because the stats there to prove it. He wins the ball back. We know he can pass because his pass completion stats are nearly 90%. And we know he can pass forward because the pass completion, like his dangerous passes are there. So everything's there. I think when you're watching games, he's not going to stand out like Bruno Fernandes because Bruno Fernandes will do those sort of passes, and he's not going to necessarily stand out like Cunha who does other things on the pitch, and he doesn't get the goals that Casemiro gets. But the thing that I would say is for me, if Kobe Mainoo is not on the pitch, you really notice there's something missing. And again, if we didn't have a Garte in the squad, but we had somebody else, maybe that would be that would be a big improvement, and that could have maybe been an extra 10 points this season if we actually had another midfield player option in the team. I think if we'd have signed a midfield player last summer and decided to play mainly from the start of the season, I think we have a different season. Like we could be generally in the mix for an exciting run in, but yeah, that's obviously with hindsight. So I don't think we're as far away as people think we are in terms of like where we want to be at the club. Yeah, he could set the tempo, couldn't he? So I'll stay for live for another 10 minutes, which will still be about an hour and a half stream. So if people got any final questions, should we'll finish with like the other story because I've spoken a lot about Mainoo. I was a little bit surprised in the stream though that Mainoo did kind of divide opinions a little bit, but football is about opinions, but I thought they would be positive, but some people are not quite so sure. Maybe we'll see maybe we'll have a different view. Like football does, like opinions do evolve in football, so maybe we'll have a different discussion after the transfer window, or maybe in a few games' time. I would love Mainoo to score the winner against Liverpool and see what people think after that one. I do get the feeling that people maybe don't notice what Mainoo does because he's not scoring goals. That's just something I think at the back of my mind. But I think goal scorers always get noticed a bit more. I think Roy Keane went under the radar a little bit when he was like more of a deep line player, but he was so important for United. And so Gaz is saying, yeah, sets the tempo. Exactly. He does that. He does that so well, doesn't he? Real question to ask is, would most of our rivals want him in their teams? So I think so. Yeah, that's something that we'll have to have a conversation with. So I think that some of our rivals, I guess with like Manchester City, they're probably just looking at buying different players. But I think with Arsenal, yeah, he definitely gets into Arsenal's team as well. If you're looking at our midfield, like Bruno Fernandes walks into Arsenal's team as well. I think to be honest, if you look at Arsenal and Manchester United, I would argue that maybe we could replace our team with some of their defensive options, but I think largely player for player, I don't think we're far off Arsenal. Like the first 11, that I think I take quite a few of our players. But if you look at Arsenal's bench, then the bench has got a bit more depth. So yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping that we see him actually playing in midfield for England. Like benching Anderson. If Anderson goes to City, I want to see Anderson sat on the bench watching Kerry Mainoo play alongside Declan Rice in the World Cup. Berber says, I see him as the perfect link between defence and attack, just sets us off so quickly. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, that people have different things they like about Mainoo. That for me, it's like the footwork, and I think for Ryan, it's about how quickly he leads the attack. I think that's what you need as well, though. If you're looking at trying to lead the attack, it's almost like when you got Bruno Fernandes, and Bruno Fernandes for me is world class at transition. Like if you're looking at someone like that, I think Bruno Fernandes has got the passing range of Scholes, but it's got the and maybe he has got the kind of like he's probably got more assist than Scholes, but I think he's got probably what's the best way? I think Bruno Fernandes has got slightly less accuracy, but he's got slightly sometimes he's got a bigger range of passing sort of thing, so he can actually get into different positions where Scholes was a bit more it's tricky to say, isn't it? I think maybe with Scholes, I think Scholes was more conservative, and then after the pass there'd always be sometimes like it wouldn't be necessary that Scholes would always create chances, but he would be directing the attack, and then there would still be like it would still mean that what after Scholes has passed, because we're playing 4-4-2 a bit more, it would be that after Scholes has passed, there would be Beckham or Giggs or someone else making a pass to get the assist. But I think with Bruno Fernandes, he's a bit further forward. He's making the passes that do lead to chances and goal scoring opportunities. But I think Scholes is always going to be a bit of a safer passer. So people think that it's not that one's better than the other. It's that they're different players, isn't it? And Gaz says Scholes wasn't hitting 60-yard passes at 20 years old either. No, exactly. That's what I was saying, Gaz. Someone in the comments, I think it was Yardi, put in how old was. That's why I asked the question: how old was Scholes when he made his debut? And I think he was 19, and Co-Mainoo must have been 18 when he made his debut. So he started a bit younger as well. I don't think Scholes was doing much apart from being a box. So he's more like a box crashing midfielder and almost like a second striker in his first few years, and is gradually over time. It must have been like at least 5 years or more. I can't remember how long. I think the first. I remember in the early 2000s, around about 1999, 2000, Scholes was still considered like more of an attacking midfielder then. And I think it was only when Roy Keane left that Scholes became a bit deeper. So I think it's like you're probably looking at maybe even 8 years or more. So we could be looking at someone that's going to be. I don't think Scholes had that sort of range of passing until maybe the late 90s, possibly. I think it was definitely a few years, I would say. I mean, you can look at say in the sort of 1999 Champions League kind of winning era for Man United. I would say it's probably going to be like the assists were coming for like Beckham and Scholes, and you had Roy Keane and so Beckham and Giggs, and you had maybe like Scholes. Yeah, exactly, Tony. It's so long ago, it's generally difficult to remember because Scholes was kind of like in and out of the team a little bit. Whereas if you're looking at, as somebody said, like Gaz said, that Scholes wasn't really a regular in the team, and he was more of a striker, more of a goal scoring midfielder. And it was to be honest, it was probably a bit later on that he developed that one as well. V2 saying that Scholes has been hitting long range passes since he was a school kid. I don't know. I think it's behind the striker. Yeah, I said second striker, but again, he did play as a forward sometimes. You're playing 4-4-2. It's a slightly different team setup. But I think the point is uh, when the point I think people are saying V is the point is that when Scholes has had his full career, you can look back on what he did as a whole career, and with Kobe Mainoo, it's literally like the start of his career, isn't it? So, like, how do Manchester United play, say, in 25, 26? It's not the same as Manchester United used to play in 1995, 1996. So it's a very different team. And I think Bruno Fernandes is the conductor in our team. He's the one that's creating all the chances. Kerry Mainoo is doing what he needs to do alongside Casemiro. So again, the midfield is going to be different next year. So Kerry Mainoo's role might evolve. Football evolves, football changes, and it might be that whatever Kerry Mainoo needs to do next season will be different again. But I think the main thing is that there's a lot of confidence in people watching that Kerry Mainoo will be fine. And so, if anyone's got any sort of maybe for a couple of minutes, if anyone's got any final comments? No, it is a bit different then, wasn't it? That you're looking at more 4-4-2. So yeah, to be honest, it's really difficult to because if you think of Manchester United, and I remember the 1998-99 season obviously sticks in the mind a lot. I think most of Manchester United's goals, you're looking at Dwight York, Andy Cole. So link-up play came through the middle, from those players, and they were playing very good understanding. But then a lot of the assists and a lot of the attack in Europe was very much on transition as well. But Beckham's and Giggs, it's different, isn't it? It's a very different team. I think the way Man United played with Scholes, so maybe from like 2000, like early 2000s onwards, when we got the title back from Chelsea, well, it was a different player then, like a really different player. I think it's difficult to remember. Like uh, Scholes was a world class player, and I'm not saying that Mainoo's Scholes. All I was pointing out was the fact that Scholes was a different player at age 21 to exactly. That's what I'm saying. We're looking at my point was going to be whatever Scholes did at 20. Then if you want to compare Scholes to Mainoo, compare Scholes at 20. And Scholes wasn't in the team really, so like no one expected Scholes to suddenly do what he did at age like say 30, 35, 38. No one expected that, or no one thought that. And if you're looking at the situation regarding, I don't know, potentially, yeah, when Beckham came through, I think people thought Beckham had a higher ceiling, and we could argue that maybe in different seasons he was a better player than Scholes as well. But I mean, the only player that came through at 18 or 17, 18, where I thought genuinely he's going to be world class is probably Ryan Giggs. He was the one player that when he broke through in his first season, you're like, right, this player's going to be world class. He looks excellent. I think Mainoo's like can't do anything more than he's done. Yeah, I don't think Scholes wanted to leave either, to be honest. Um, Manchester United still value Mount at 30 to 40 million and remain firmly in control. He's under contract to still 2 more years. Okay. No, I saw Mason Mount this morning was saying that he feels like we've got a squad that's capable of winning the Premier League if we build around it properly. But I think I think a Premier League winning team might not it might not contain Scholes. Sorry, it might not contain Mason Mount, unfortunately for him. So from yeah, do you think is there any chance that he leaves the club? It's that if we value him at 30 to 40 million pounds, that might be how much you have to pay. But I know that if we can't sell Rashford for 28 or whatever it is, we're not going to sell Mason Mount for more, are we? But if Mason Mount's at Barcelona, how many games does he play? I don't know. That I'd probably be saying I would be. Yeah, so pressure is mounting literally. I'd be saying that I don't think there's anybody in world football that pays 40 million pounds for Mount. I mean, I don't think he even I don't think he even gets into our team, does he? I say none of our players now match up. Maybe if you're going to look at players at the moment, I would say Mr. B. I would say that Bruno Fernandes does. Bruno Fernandes holds up against other players. I think maybe it's a bit too early for some of the players as well, isn't it? Mount's wages are more reasonable than Rashford's. Aren't they about 200 plus? Are they like 250? The thing is that Mason Mount's probably going to get a 20% pay rise as well with Champions League football. So it's a lot. My point was going to be that with Rashford does score goals, get assists. Would Mason Mount, I don't know, would Mason Mount suit a Spanish league? I mean, he's actually looked better in Europe, so possibly it's tricky. Um, yeah, do you think, okay, I've got a question for people because I know this is a contentious effort, and to be honest, I've only got one shirt, only one shirt I've got with a Manchester United name on a number on the back, and that does actually have a seven on the back, incidentally. But if Manchester United bought a couple of players this season, and you were looking to take the number seven off Mason Mount, who would you give it to? Like, would you give it to any current player in the squad, or is there any current signing we could potentially make that you would give it to? Like, just a quick question for fans watching: if you're going to give the number seven. to a different player this season and go right, Mason Mount, you're going to have squad number 50, then uh, side competition. It's not Beckham's, but Beckham was one of my favourite players. No, so who would you give it to? So he's got his kind of name number locked down there, isn't he? So the in our current squad, Bruno is the only one worth number seven. Yeah, maybe Bruno Fernandes should have got that when he joined because he was good. And Fernandez says Gaz. Yeah, maybe I should be open-minded, Corinne. I think Mason Mount could be a good player in the Champions League. Yeah, you're not wrong, Stephanie. That's the only one I've got. Since then, I think to be honest, I think when Cantona was in the team, he was like a standout player. He was like the main guy for like a long, long time. And I think since then, I remember going into a shop maybe about it must have been 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And I just looked at, and actually, no, the number I saw was Rooney, so it might have been like 15, 20 years ago. And I was just looking, thinking, I don't know, there's so many good players. That we used to have a situation where if you're going to get a number on the back of your shirt and a name, there was literally too many people to pick from. So you're thinking, oh, we've got Keane, we've got Skulls, we've got Giggs. But no, yeah, definitely Eric Cantona. Cunha is a seven type. I think Cunha's kind of got the classiness, possibly. So Anderson, then yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I think when I think of number sevens, you kind of think of like you have someone like someone maybe like George Best has got the flair, the quality, and the charisma, and then Cantona had the charisma as well. You had Brian Robson, like the leader, the captain. So I think it's almost like got to be one of the most important players, like one of the most important players. And I thought Brian Robson was the number seven when I was growing up. And then you look at it and go, right, now he's going to be the number seven. There's Eric Cantona, and he's the one that he was probably the one when I started watching Manchester United. Or actually, I suppose Brian Robson, the transition from Brian Robson through to winning things was probably. Then you got Eric Cantona was clearly the catalyst, like the most important player for about 5 years. And then after that, it was like Beckham, and then Beckham was like one of my favourite players. When I think of seven, yeah, I kind of think of Maverick because if you're looking at it, you think Brian Robson did everything. You look at George Best, unconventional, just stands out. Eric Cantona, literally no one like Eric Cantona before or after since Eric Cantona. So I think Eric Cantona is possibly like for me was like the charismatic, outstanding player. And I think for Beckham, you've got like an ultimate player as well. And so Best was number seven when you started watching United. I think for some people I know that say like for me it was Robson, but I think Cantona I didn't see the best of Brian Robson. It was probably I think there's a few games like was it early 80s like 83, 84 against Barcelona. Robson was like an amazing player. But no, I kind of missed the Brian Robson's best career and years. So no, I thought in terms of this that there was definitely and I think for a lot of people I know, they see Cristiano Ronaldo as the only number seven they've seen, or they might have got the end of like of Beck's career. But no, it just felt like we had like almost like a world class list of that. So we got George Best, we got Brian Robson, we got Eric Cantona, we got say since then you got Ronaldo, you've got I think so Brian Robson. It might be similar time then. I remember Brian Robson was like kind of like not on his way out 'cause that sounds bad, but he was kind of like towards the end of his career when I started watching him. No, so I just think, is there anyone at the team that you'd look at and say Seven's like the edge of the sword, says Chris. Who do you think who would be that player at the club then at the moment? Like I think Bruno Fernandes would probably be the obvious candidate as a bit of a maverick. And so you got to be beyond cocky. Apart from Bruno Fernandes, maybe Cunha is the one that possibly would be that player. It's tricky. I just don't think I don't think any of the players we're linked to are quite that sort of player. Like Anderson, Fernandez. I think you kind of got to earn it a little bit. Like you've got to be an influential player. That being a good midfielder player. I don't think it makes you the seven, But so it sounds like a weird conversation, but it's not necessarily the positional sense. I think it's like what the player brings to that one as well. And so the number 11 should be held in higher esteem. I think number 11 is pretty much Ryan Giggs, isn't it? That's probably I think with seven, it goes back to the 60s, doesn't it? So I think that's why people regard it so highly. And it probably was like because of Eric Cantona, there's two golden generations with Man United, isn't there? There's like well, it's maybe three. So you've got the 60s one, you've got the 90s one, and you've probably got the 2008 team with like Ronaldo as well. So you've probably got three actual eras of, and they're all kind of like culminate in like a Champions League or European Cup for me. Yeah, sorry, but I've gone way off track. So sorry for people that tuned in to listen to conversations about Mainoo. I went way off track with that one. But I've just thought it was an interesting question. If you're going to pick one team, one player in the squad to be the number seven, then Mason Mount's obviously not the guy, is it? I don't know. I don't know. Is it Embuemo and Ahmed like 7 and 11? I think we need to get an elite world class winger. Like if we got Cavashalia, we could give Cavashalia number 11 maybe because I like the way that he runs with the ball, great running, got a great shot. I do like that aspect of his game. I mean, Cavashalia for me is quite exciting as well. I think maybe with the number seven, it feels like you've got to be good at a few things. Like Beckham had a great shot, but he was a good captain, could play central, could score goals. Yeah, unfortunately, we kind of got a combination, haven't we, of like we've probably got some of the best sevens in world football, but we've also got some of the mediocre ones recently, unfortunately. So Sesko would look quality. Yeah, I don't know what Sesko would get. Maybe looking at number nine for Sesko, but I think when I think number nine, I think Andy Cole. So it's difficult. Everyone has a different idea of who should be in different numbers. And then actually, remember like Scholes had number 10 on his back. I remember that one as well. So it's tricky. So Seska's wearing number nine next season. What's the question for can we get him for that, Jeff? Which player are you talking about, Jeff? 'Cause if it's Anderson, I would probably say very, very doubtful. Very doubtful. So Stephanie says seven was usually the right winger. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense, doesn't it, when you got Beckham there? But I suppose who was on the right when we gave the number seven to Brian Robson then? But that's a bit before my time. When dinosaurs roamed the earth, Stephanie, and they were handing out the number seven to Brian Robson, who was the number seven before Brian Robson? Because I generally don't know. That's kind of like a bit of a grey area for me, like that sort of late 70s, early 80s. So I hate the term poster boy. Do we have one? I don't know. I would say Bruno, but people on social media don't like Bruno for a confusing reason. So seven's got to be good with crosses. Was it Steve Coppell? Okay. Oh, the PSG winger. Can we get Kvaratskhelia? Doubtful. Doubtful. I think there's no chance of us getting Kvaratskhelia for what number was Strachan? Oh, honestly, I can't remember. No, I can't remember. No, I think I remember Steve Coppell as a manager more than a player. Um, so we'll sign Rafa Leao and give it to him. Yeah. Do you know what? When people say they're worried about signings, and I said like, don't worry about Belieber. There's a good chance we might get Belieber. Okay. I'm actually the only thing that makes me worry about is for some reason I don't know why. Sometimes I worry that I think don't sign Rafa Leao. I know there's people that like Rafa Leao. I'm just worried that it won't work out. So I can't be positive about Rafa Leao because I'm a bit worried it'll be a disaster. So, so I look like a player that's got a nasty tackle in him. I would say I play like Mark Hughes, like quite calm off the pitch, but potentially slightly more aggressive if the game, yeah, when you're playing, but fair, but yeah, exactly. Fair, but like to win, but that way. Your triggers are Southgate and Leo. If either happens, that you won't stop watching Cody. You won't stop watching, but you'll be. I'll be skeptical. I'll be. I would just like to know what the mindset is because I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this one. I look more like a cricketer. I literally have no idea what the reference you mean by that. Good to see that people are on the same wavelength. I mean, I wouldn't go quite that far, but I would definitely not be. I would not be keen. But yeah, no, it definitely it divides opinions. Do you know what? I did a poll this morning, and because I was talking about Rogers, I put a poll. Okay, this is if you missed the morning stream, and it was a vote between Rafael Leao, Morgan Rogers, Unai at Everton, and Diamonde. And yeah, the the one I didn't want actually polled the most. So I don't know. People want him. People want him. I'm too biased to be a referee. V like way too biased. No, I'm left-footed, so I was more of a. I was actually played more positions like Ryan Giggs. So I played left wing, left midfield, occasionally centre midfield. So kind of on that side, but occasionally coming in. So almost like kind of mirrored a little bit of like Ryan Giggs' career, where he played positionally. But again, if I was playing now, I'd probably have to be inverted, which might annoy me. But no, naturally I'd play on the left, and I was used to playing on the left. I didn't mind playing centrally, and I'd quite like to actually getting involved a bit more physically in the centre. But no, left-sided player. I- I'd probably frustrate Ryan because I wouldn't necessarily be tracking back incredibly large amounts, but I didn't play for a professional team, so it didn't really matter too much. Um, so it wasn't, yeah. With Di Maria, there's been some bad ones, isn't there? There's been some bad ones. I don't know what it is. I read an article that changed my mind on Di Maria, and it was just saying that, yeah, I'm also, yeah, that's true. That's true. That is definitely true. No, I definitely, what was the reason for it? No, there's something, I saw a comment I was going to kind of end on that one. Yeah, but I read an article about Rafael, and there was a few issues regarding like whether he's fallen out with the fans, the owners, or there just seems to be a situation where he's got a release clause, and it looks like they're trying to start pricing him to sell. It looks like they're trying to. No, it looks like they're trying to like move him out cheap, and it looks like they just want rid of him. And it just when you start looking into the story and just think there's too many things that could go wrong here. And I like the signing of Lamans. I like the kind of harmony we've got in the squad. I like the way the squad's evolving. And I look at Rafael and think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Do you know what? Once, like, a couple of years ago on Red Devil United on that channel, we actually did like go through the chat and say like, if you played football, I think most people watching played football to like it doesn't matter what level, but where did you play? Because my dad was a centre back, so he played centre back for the local team. I played. I'm not very disciplined defensively, so I would be just wandering out if I was in defence. So I played left wing, left midfield, generally sometimes in the centre, which I quite liked, left side of midfield, but more of a 4-4-2 because we're talking like that sort of era. And so Chris says, you're a capable striker, occasionally cam, but right back, centre back, CDM. You basically just played all the opposite, all the positions I didn't play. I didn't actually mind playing as maybe behind the striker. I quite liked. I quite liked that as well. So it was like generally on the left side, but sometimes centrally. So I pretty much I'd be like Morgan Rogers, where I'd say I'll play on the left. Anywhere on the left is fine. I don't mind playing centre, but on the right I might be not great, like not ideal. But maybe I'd be forced to do something different at this point. Quinn said you played centre back, sometimes in front of the sweeper. You were horrible. Yeah, I don't think any of us are going to be, forcing our way into Man United's team. But yeah, Milan are desperate to. Milan are like just pimping him round, don't they? So we need to just dodge that one. 100%, 100%. Anyone play goalkeeper? Weirdly, I've got a guest that hasn't been on for ages, but he was. If people know Alex, Scottish guy, it hadn't been on for quite a long time, but maybe we can get him on at some point. He was actually an academy goalkeeper, but he did get injured when he was at that sort of stage. But he's someone that actually I used to get on when we were talking about Anana a couple of years ago. I used to get him on, and he would just be like breaking down like the things that weren't going great. So no, just interested. Where did you say you played V? I'm just interested where people what positions people play because everyone's got an. If you're looking if you're listening to me talk about football, I'm generally in favor of attacking players, and because on the pitch I tend to like looking at wingers or like Cunha, for example, and I think I've got a natural bias towards players that played in positions where I played or liked watching, or players I watched in the past like playing. So if people have the sort of same sort of mentality as Cantona or the same sort of skill set as other players I've watched. I think everybody's got a bit of a bias. I'll be actually lucky. No, I think we're no, we never wanted to play keeper. So that was one position I'm not so keen on. So I probably should wrap up the stream and go and touch some grass outside 'cause it's quite sunny. Like say Morgan Rogers and I say after that midfield sell Rashford to Bayer Leverkusen. Xerxes to AC Milan. You've got some very specific demands, Lucky, which I don't mind as well. Yeah, based on some of the comments that um saying with these knees you'd have to be a manager. And maybe we could be competitive if we had a kick around then saying you'd have a heart attack you played now. Well, it's always worth like keeping fitness levels up. It can. So your striker, an academy player, got an ACL done. That's really annoying. Yeah, I used to do a crazy amount of cycling, but I don't do that so much anymore. But I don't know, I'm probably better in short bursts of speed, but I probably should work on stamina to be honest. That's something maybe that should be a resolution. Yeah. I used to quite like running at right backs and like just kind of I think it used to be something, when you have like aspects of the game you like. If I was in midfield, I quite like because I think I'm quite naturally yeah. I appreciate that V. I might have to like bookmark that comment. No, because I'm not big build sort of thing. But if I did weights a lot, I would just get stronger rather than big. So it's more like a Ryan Giggs build. But if I did loads of weights, I'd still look like Ryan Giggs, but I'd be stronger. Then I was quite good at actually being physical on the ball because I don't know. It's not as if you know how to use your kind of momentum and body shape, you can just push people off the ball, can't you? If you go in with your elbow, it's fine. 90s, 2000s, you can be more physical then anyway. But no, I think with that as well. So I quite liked being the fact that I was stronger than I looked was obviously a good thing, and probably slightly more stamina than I looked as well. So every position, but best of the forward. Yeah, I quite like being wide positions, although I did quite like it if you got the opportunity to cut inside and actually have some shots. There's no better feeling than actually scoring goals, is there? So that's always something that's quite nice. But I think when you're in midfield, it's quite nice just to win back possessions, like quite satisfying as well. If you can like break up attacks, stop people as well. I think for me, I think football is definitely about winning your battle, like winning your duels, and that's something that whatever happens with Man United, it's about winning your duels, winning your battles in midfield, winning. And I think for like someone like Mainoo, for example, if he can win the ball back, then that's part of the game, isn't it? But and that's something that people probably don't notice. And they're setting up attacks as well. So for me, it's like no, it's difficult. Midfield's kind of a challenge, I think, because you've got to be quite disciplined. So you've got to be say you're going in the stands, left foot winger. You're not going down my lane. line Well, we'll have to see about that, Chris. We'll have to see. Let's say, have I been listening to Bath I've not spoken to him for quite a long time, actually. But I was just thinking, when I'm playing football myself, it feels if you're in the centre midfield, then you're kind of very much involved with like there's one or two people you're looking out for. And I used to be looking at like, okay, where are the people from defence going to be passing out? Because there's going to be like an obvious outlet that you always go for. And like if you're trying to read the game, I would say for me, I'd try and read what's going to happen rather than being reactive. So if you're trying to then go right, you can cut out passes if you know where they're going to be passing to. You can look at when you're playing in school and for teams like that, you know who the best players are on the other opposition team. You know the ball's going to go to them, so you look out for like just go off them a little bit, wait to intercept when you see a centre back's going to pass them or something, and then your option then is to like try and then pick out your strikers, pick out your runners. So I think the intelligence side of football is a bit under talked about to be often. So you always tune into spaces. Yeah, I don't tend to get much time to these spaces, but I will try and get some people on to discuss football and more. I'm going to have Dora on tomorrow. And actually, Dora and Dylan are going to come on tomorrow night at about 7 p.m. Tonight, we're going to be having Kieran. So, so you moved around the pool table. It's the only exercise you got in younger days. Uh, I used to cycle to work about 6 miles each way. So that was when I was at my fittest. So, so no, I used to do too much cycling, like say like 60 miles a week. That's when I was really actually fit. Yeah, no, I quite like the color. And I'll say I haven't actually bought a football kit for a few years now because there doesn't seem to be a lot of variety in the kits. That I feel like I've got every variation of like a stripe color, so I've got enough. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap up the stream in a couple of minutes. If anyone's got any questions, I kind of like the stream's got to a point where there's not really any sort of like obvious finish point. So I just say, co-menu contract done deal. Are people generally happy with this one? So if you want to post your final comments and say, Mr. B said football's soft now, you're not allowed to put your foot in anymore. I used to put my shoulder in actually. If you go like shoulder to shoulder and push people off the ball, then as long as you time it quite right, if you time it right, it's quite easy. That's when people aren't expecting it, it's timing, isn't it? Yeah, I used to wear shin pads because when I played, there was definitely no holding back. Do I have the famous grey kit? No, one of my friends bought the grey kit when we were in school. They bought the grey kit. They came in, and I'm trying to think. Actually, was it, this must have been like they put it on at lunchtime or something. So obviously you have to wear school uniform, but they had the grey kit, and I think that might be in the infamous game. Like I'm trying to think what year was it we had the grey kit? I think it was in school, but someone I know had the grey kit. Someone I knew where I lived. And then I think a couple of like not long after they bought the grey kit, Man United had that game against Southampton. And they stopped wearing it. And yeah, to be honest, I'll say I've not got any single away kit. I've only got red kits. I wish I'd bought. I didn't have enough money in the '90s, but I wish I got the golden, yeah, the golden green one or that sharp view cam black one. But the only one I might buy, again, I might have to give some pennies to someone, but I might have to buy or acquire the the white one with like the red stripes from the 1991 Cup Winners' Cup final. That might have to be one. Again, was it 96, 97, 95? It's somewhere around then, wasn't it? Do you remember we had that weird blue one that was like blue stripes with white, had a bit of yellow on it? And then the gold, yeah, gold and was it gold and black, that one? No, it was one of my friends bought the grey kit and then Man United didn't wear it. Then the guy, I think my friend didn't wear it much after that. But they're worth quite a lot of money apparently. Well, they used to be because people didn't buy it because Man United never wore it. I didn't really like the grey kit. It's just like why wear something grey? That is the most dreary color. United literally have every single other color as well. So the Sheffield Wednesday knockoff strip, yeah, that might have been it actually. The one that was like the stripes were like a cross, weren't they? So I think it was, or was it like I can't remember though. There was quite a lot of them. It wasn't like even stripes either. It was like thin stripes and like wide stripes. It was a bit weird. Or was it white and gold? Yeah, I remember it. Yeah. No, that was must have been around about, was that like early 2000s or something? Yeah, an up and down stripes. But it was like a thin one, then like a wide one, and it was a bit weird. No. Yeah, maybe you should have given Rasmus some advice, Chris. So, are we thinking about, yeah, maybe if Eric Cantona wore it, that kind of dates it pre pre like 1978, doesn't it? Yeah, I would never sell any of my old kits. To be honest, I wouldn't really buy any retro kits either. I'd like it's nice to have the kits from that sort of time. Yeah, green and gold. If they reshoot it, maybe they need to bring in another one, like bring in another green and gold kit. Because I think some of the away kits now we just keep going white and black kits, and they're not quite so interesting. Arsenal Bruce Banana's a good one. Is that like I'm trying to think? That's probably is that like 90s? That sounds kind of. I think they might have brought one in when Thierry Henry was there as well. Anyway, guys, I better head off because I'm going to be live tonight about 8 p.m. at Kieran, which should be a good one. Hopefully, there's going to be some sort of breaking news to cover as well. But if you subscribe to the channel today, thanks for getting involved in the community. This is a bit longer than I wanted to do, but we kind of went off a bit off topic, and it's quite an interesting chat. But anyway, so in conclusion, Eric Cantona was a great number 7. There's lots of other good examples, but Cobain is a good signing as well. Maybe we'll get like a big number in the future as well. Let's hope he has a great career at Manchester United. And we'll be discussing other stuff for about 5 hours. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your day. It's bright and sunny outside, so I'm going to go outside for a little bit, and I'll catch you in the next one.